Tenemos un momento espectacular, esperado e inédito, Paloma.
Más momentos inéditos y originales en este congreso que tiene mucha vocación experimental. Justamente por los enormes desafíos que está viviendo la humanidad, requerimos tratar cosas nuevas, pensar desde un lugar diferente, y qué mejor que traer francamente un montón de expertos que dedican su vida a eso, a tener nuevas preguntas, a encontrar eventualmente tal vez nuevas respuestas que los llevan otra vez a nuevas preguntas, ¿no? De eso se trata todo, y también se trata de eso la evolución humana. Y es por eso que hoy estamos muy orgullosas de presentar la primera Cumbre de Filósofos y Filósofas en el marco de este Congreso Futuro, en su versión número 14. En este quinto día, todos estos números nos hablan de un camino que hemos recorrido juntos, todos ustedes, la comunidad que está interesada en pensar una y otra vez las cosas y que probablemente es la que puede salvarnos de todos los desastres que nos enteramos en este mismo congreso.
Y también de las oportunidades, se presentan desafíos y desde la filosofía se están entregando, como decía Paloma, preguntas, pero también abriendo oportunidades para entender cuál es el rol que vamos a tener precisamente para entender que la humanidad puede efectivamente seguir avanzando de la mano de la tecnología, pero que la tecnología no nos tiene que superar, haciéndonos perder además capacidades, que es parte de los desafíos que también hemos escuchado en estas conversaciones, que cruzan interesantemente precisamente ante la pregunta de qué humanidad queremos, las respuestas tecnológicas, los avances en todo lo que tiene que ver con la revolución digital, pero sin embargo con las preguntas en el centro y preguntas que solo la humanidad se tiene que responder. Y ahí la filosofía cumple un papel principal, Paloma.
Comprender es algo que todavía hace mucho tiempo atrás frente a la inteligencia artificial era como, no importa, una inteligencia artificial nunca nos ganará en ajedrez. Bueno, ya pasó. Bueno, no importa, una inteligencia artificial nunca hará un cuadro, ya pasó. Por ahora, todavía la inteligencia artificial no logra comprender el mundo como lo hacemos nosotros. Y es eso a lo que los queremos invitar hoy día. Pero antes vamos a saludar a todos los que nos acompañan. Vemos un salón lleno hasta los bordes. No caben las personas aquí y también las autoridades. Queremos saludar a la ministra de Salud, Jimena Aguilera.
Así es, y pedir un aplauso para ella también. Ahí saludamos a la ministra. Queremos saludar a una ministra de un tema clave también que ha estado muy presente aquí en el escenario de Congreso Futuro 2025, la ministra de Medio Ambiente, Maisa Rojas. Un aplauso para la ministra de Medio Ambiente que está aquí en primera fila.
Oye, yo aquí propongo el viejo truco del aplauso aglutinado, porque tenemos mucha gente a la que saludar. Entonces, queremos saludar también al senador Francisco Chaguán, miembro de la Comisión Desafíos del Futuro.
Aplausos para el senador Francisco Chaguán, a la subsecretaria del Patrimonio Cultural, Carolina Pérez. Muchas gracias, Carolina Pérez, por estar acá.
A la subsecretaria del Deporte, Emilia Ríos.
A la subsecretaria de Relaciones Económicas Internacionales, Claudia Sangüesa.
A la subsecretaria de Educación Parvularia, Claudia Lagos.
Mira la erupción. Importante la participación de las mujeres también a propósito de otro de los temas y otro de los desafíos que siempre tenemos que abordar y que han estado presentes en ediciones anteriores del Congreso Futuro. También agradecemos a alcaldes y alcaldesas, a los miembros del directorio de la Fundación Encuentros del Futuro, a nuestros auspiciadores. Y quiero sí ahora pedir un aplauso especial y dirigido a las y los filósofos internacionales que hoy nos honran con su presencia, partiendo por Markus Gabriel, Hartmut Rosa, José María Lassalle, Laurent de Sutter, Renata Salecl, Laurent de Villers, Yukhui y Raya Shatila.
¡Qué francés el de Lucía López! Oye, pero todo el estilo porque tenemos que vestirnos de fiesta para esta fiesta del pensamiento. También queremos agradecer, por supuesto, a todos ustedes, el público asistente que está aquí con cuerpo, pero también con alma a través de nuestras posibilidades de transmisión virtual a lo largo de Chile y a través de las fronteras de Chile nos están acompañando todos ustedes. Un gran aplauso para ustedes que construyen el Congreso Futuro cada año. Sean realmente bienvenidos a esta fiesta de la filosofía, la cultura, a la humanidad. Y la humanidad, queremos traerles a ustedes esta pregunta que ha sido tan inspiradora para nuestro Congreso a lo largo del tiempo, porque no es una pregunta nueva. Y es, ¿qué significa ser humano? ¿Qué hace a una persona? ¿Qué es la conciencia? ¿Por qué esto nos da un cierto derecho de pensar el futuro, de pensar a otras especies, tomar decisiones hacia dónde queremos mover el mundo, transformarlo como lo hemos hecho? Esta pregunta es una pregunta que nos convoca de una manera muy profunda, sobre todo en un contexto donde esta cosa que creamos, la tecnología, nuestra obra, hoy día nos está mirando de vuelta y nos está atrapando ¿y entonces para qué la humanidad? ¿Y entonces para qué el trabajo? Y si todo lo que está movilizando la tecnología reemplaza lo humano, ¿era eso lo que queríamos? Es tan profunda y tan existencial la situación en la que nos encontramos por el avance de la tecnología que nos parece que este Congreso es lo mínimo que podemos hacer para tratar de comprenderla, ¿no?
Claro que sí, una pregunta muy interesante, una de las más urgentes además de nuestra época ante la vertiginosidad con la que avanza además el desarrollo tecnológico, y esa es la razón por la cual hemos convocado a estos 8 filósofos y filósofas de impacto global que se hacen presentes aquí en el Congreso del Futuro. Así que brindemos ese aplauso a la primera Cumbre de Filósofos y Filósofas de Chile, que se hace aquí en Congreso Futuro 2025. La filosofía, a menudo considerada abstracta o difícil para muchos y muchas, se presenta aquí como una herramienta cercana y concreta para enfrentar los dilemas de nuestra época. Los y las participantes aportarán sus perspectivas únicas, pero sin duda todos y todas comparten una misma pasión, Paloma, que es entender cómo la tecnología no solo ha ido cambiando nuestras sociedades, sino también nuestra esencia como ser humano.
Bueno, para partir y abrir los fuegos es que queremos invitar aquí a alguien que realmente ha podido escuchar y observar el recorrido del pensamiento gracias a esta lente que es Congreso Futuro, que trae aquí a tantas mentes a lo largo del tiempo y que por lo tanto nos permite llevar una especie como de pulso de cómo se transforma la humanidad y cuáles son las cosas que todavía no vemos venir, pero que están llegando. Por eso queremos dejar aquí en el escenario al vicepresidente de Fundación Encuentros del Futuro, uno de los gestores de esta cumbre, que nos va a dirigir unas palabras. Guido Girardi, bienvenido.
Aplausos para él.
Bueno, yo creo que vamos a vivir uno de los momentos más expectantes de Congreso Futuro, por lo menos para mí, que tiene que ver con estas preguntas fundamentales de qué humanidad queremos ser. Congreso Futuro, en cierta manera, es un modelo de poner valores que hoy día se están perdiendo en la sociedad, de colaboración, de gratuidad, de transversalidad, de inclusión, que son lo que representa Congreso Futuro. Por eso está sentado Francisco Chaguán, estoy yo. Estos son todas las universidades chilenas, la Academia de Ciencias, el gobierno, los empresarios, los territorios, el Senado, la Cámara de Diputados. Yo creo que es un modelo único. Acá vamos a hacer un Congreso Futuro en Marruecos. Pero ¿por qué esta reflexión? Porque es paradojal. El ser humano es en la tecnología. O sea, sin tecnología no hubiéramos evolucionado, no estaríamos acá, seríamos todavía en la jungla. La tecnología es lo que permitió la evolución, construir sociedad, y la tecnología ha sido el instrumento de desarrollo. Tal vez lo que hay un cambio hoy día es que nosotros somos hijos de la evolución y la tecnología, pero estamos enfrentando un nuevo mundo, estamos enfrentando 4 revoluciones gigantescas, que cada una por sí sola va a cambiar el mundo, y no tenemos respuesta, que son la inteligencia artificial, la nanotecnología, la edición genética, que nos permite ser dioses, construir nuevos seres vivos, y particularmente la computación cuántica. Uno de los speakers decía, lo que demora 150 años en computarse hoy día, va a demorar un segundo. Y la capacidad de memoria, que se duplica cada 18 meses, se va a duplicar cada segundo. Son otras escalas. Y todo eso va a potenciar la inteligencia artificial. Entonces, estamos viviendo una era en que la tecnología que había aumentado las capacidades humanas, hoy día hay una conversación que le vamos a preguntar a nuestro filósofo, si puede sustituir competencia humana, si nos puede sustituir en el trabajo. Y tal vez llegó el momento de decir a lo mejor, y ese es el tema ético que planteaba Markus, que habrán algunas competencias humanas que aunque la máquina la pueda hacer mejor, más allá si la máquina tiene conciencia o no, pero va a tener competencias de generar o de hacer cosas mejor que lo humano. A lo mejor tenemos que decidir que vamos a preservar para el humano ciertas competencias intelectuales, creativas, emocionales. Y tenemos que decir eso y cuáles son, o si queremos ir a una poshumanidad, que a lo mejor es la propuesta que nos hace el transhumanismo, que el ser humano está obsoleto, que hay que optimizarlo. E incluso Ray Kurzweil dice hay que abandonar el cuerpo, hay que meter el cuerpo en una máquina y nuestra conciencia en una máquina en el 2045. No es cualquier persona, es el fundador de la Singularity University y es el jefe de ingeniería de Google. Luego hay un modelo de negocio que está afectando a la democracia. Porque el combustible del futuro son los datos. Y lo que está en disputa son la atención, los cerebros de cada persona, y la atención es el recurso más valioso. Pero como la atención se activa con los contenidos polares, extremos, mecanismos de sobrevivencia, en las redes sociales los contenidos de un premio Nobel, de personas o de contenidos razonables, de inteligencia desaparecen, y lo que está amplificado son los contenidos distópicos, violentos o agresivos. Eso está afectando a la democracia porque ahí se está disolviendo la frontera entre lo verdadero y lo falso. Entonces, ¿cómo recuperar la verdad en las redes sociales cuando no hay certificación de veracidad? Y los medios tradicionales que tienen que hacer la certificación de veracidad están cada vez más débiles porque tienen que cumplir con un conjunto de restricciones que las redes sociales no tienen, competencia desleal. No pueden poner pornografía, incitación al odio, etcétera, etcétera. Entonces tenemos un segundo tema que me parece muy importante. Además, una inteligencia artificial que se alimenta con datos, cuidado, en los datos está lo peor del humano en las redes sociales, no está lo mejor del humano. Es como este chat conversacional de TAI, de Microsoft en 2016, que lo que tuvieron que apagar porque se puso homofóbico, nazi. Tenemos que tener cuidado con esto. Segundo tema, un tema ético. Porque claro, yo decía, la inteligencia artificial puede superar al humano en muchas tareas y a lo mejor tenemos que... Pero también, como decía Markus, hay una reflexión que plantea Nick Bostrom que podríamos ir a una superinteligencia, dado que muchos de los avances de la inteligencia artificial están basados en el cerebro humano. Por ejemplo, el aprendizaje profundo con la corteza visual o el aprendizaje reforzamiento también tiene que ver con los modelos, cómo los seres humanos aprendemos, que es el condicionamiento operante, que son los premios que se decían. Entonces, tenemos una segunda reflexión y una tercera, que es más política. Y que a mí me parece muy importante, que es una apropiación del futuro por el transhumanismo. El transhumanismo es en parte China y en parte Silicon Valley. ¿Qué es el transhumanismo? Es una ideología libertariana. Su filosofía parte que lo más importante, el derecho fundamental, es el derecho individual. Que no hay derecho superior al derecho individual, que no hay bien común. Pero cuidado, eso significa que no hay sociedad, porque la sociedad significa aceptar un bien común superior. Y por lo tanto no hay democracia, por lo tanto no tienen que haber reglas ni regulaciones, y para ellos el tema que tenemos que ver es que la tecnología es el instrumento para liberar al humano, para que pueda hacer justamente expresar esa libertad total. ¿Por qué? Porque en sociedad nosotros dependemos unos de otros, estamos obligados a la sociedad. Y además emerge la inteligencia colaborativa, pero aquí hay algunos que se apropiaron de eso y creen que ellos tienen que diseñar el mundo, como Elon Musk. Él cree que tiene la fuerza y el poder y la inteligencia suficiente para decidir lo que tiene que hacer la humanidad. Y yo me pregunto, ¿esa es la humanidad que queremos? Y el peligro de esto, esta alianza entre la extrema derecha, que hoy día canaliza la rabia, antes la rabia la canalizaban las religiones, la indignación después la izquierda, pero hoy día la canaliza la extrema derecha y son los que más gritan en las redes y son los líderes del futuro si no hacemos nada. Entonces, la preocupación es también si vamos a dejar que este mundo quede en pocas manos. Entonces, el humano llegó a un estado clímax para mí. O sea, todos los seres humanos han desarrollado lo más maravilloso, toda esta tecnología, todo este potencial maravilloso que puede salvar vidas, que nos puede llegar al mejor de los mundos. El problema no es eso, sino en las manos que está y lo que estamos haciendo con eso. Entonces, yo creo que llegó un momento crítico. Así como hoy día la energía nuclear, cuando está en manos de los Putin y en manos de los dictadores de Corea del Norte, es peligrosa. Yo creo que nosotros tenemos que decidir qué humanidad queremos ser y tenemos que actuar. Y Congreso Futuro lo que busca es actuar. Paradojalmente somos los conservadores. Queremos conservar la democracia, las instituciones, el planeta, la ecología. Hay otros que quieren cambiarlo todo. Y nosotros somos los conservadores que queremos conservar al humano y conservar la humanidad. Tal vez el conflicto que viene a futuro va a ser un conflicto político, ético y político, de defensa de la democracia, de defensa del humanismo del humano versus aquellos que quieren terminar con el humano, que quieren abandonar el cuerpo, como Ray Kurzweil, que dice que tenemos que ya vivir en el mundo virtual. Cuidado, ya estamos pasando 7 horas diarias en las pantallas, hemos abandonado parte de nuestros cuerpos y tenemos que recuperar la capacidad de pensar. En la velocidad, en el aceleracionismo de este tiempo, en la exponencialidad de este tiempo, que es la característica, cuesta mucho pensar. Y la paciencia hay que recuperarla. Yo cancelo el Uber cuando se demora más de 4 minutos. El ser humano no es capaz de pensar en esa velocidad y tenemos que recuperar el tiempo, el silencio, la concentración. Eso es Congreso Futuro. Muchas gracias y le damos paso a esta iniciativa que nació con una conversación con Markus, Gabriel y José María Lassalle hace muchos meses y que hoy día se puede concretar. Así que tengamos un gran panel y un gran foro. Muchas gracias a todos.
Muchas gracias, Guido Giraldi. Otro aplauso para él, además, quien en estos 7 minutos no solamente ha planteado las preocupaciones, sino que ha demostrado, o estas preguntas, la pasión que hay detrás de fundar un Congreso Futuro como este, ¿no es cierto? La preocupación por el futuro de la humanidad, de aquellos que en un futuro, como Guido, como tú, como todos nosotros, no vamos a estar, pero sí queremos saber cómo aportar para el rol, para entender el rol que va a tener la humanidad, y eso es parte de lo que vamos a conversar, Paloma, acá.
Oye, vamos a comenzar ahora. Yo voy a estar, Lucía, no sé tú, pero yo en el futuro, ahí vemos.
Ahí vemos cómo.
Hoy vemos cómo, hay tantas posibilidades, dice este congreso. Oye, hoy día queremos hablar y poner grandes temas. No sabemos cómo va a resultar este experimento. Nuestros filósofos no tienen hoy día traductor. El traductor, you don't have translation. And they are waiting for it. Estamos resolviendo ese asunto. Tienen que entrar pronto muchas personas con muchos traductores. Pero les voy a explicar a ustedes cuál va a ser la dinámica. Cada uno de ellos va a tener intervenciones de apenas 3 minutos sobre una pregunta central. La idea es que en ese momento se escuchen unos a otros y puedan compartir ideas. You all will have 3 minutes for giving us an answer, an idea about something that we're going to
Tienen 3 minutos para darnos una respuesta a una idea o una interrogante que planteemos. La idea es que todos nos escuchemos y luego tengamos una conversación y así sucesivamente. Empecemos
Pero
entonces.
necesitamos los traductores, producción.
Sí, mientras tanto vamos a contar un poco de qué es lo que vamos a conversar, Paloma. Podemos adelantar un poquito las preguntas que aquí van a rondar. Son pocas preguntas nuestras, la idea es que efectivamente ustedes sean los protagonistas de este espacio. Y le vamos a contar al público
El primer bloque
también.
busca hablar justamente sobre la tecnología y cómo esta tecnología está redefiniendo lo humano. Y por lo mismo cada uno de ellos tiene ciertas fijaciones o preguntas fundamentales que nos permiten abrir una respuesta, en este caso sobre el ámbito de la ética. Yo quiero ver si a ti no te habla nadie por el oído,
No, hasta el momento todavía no. Son
Estamos-
cosas que pasan.
¿Hablemos en inglés? Ok, let's go.
Hagamos algo.
Ok.
Yo voy a preguntar en español para nuestra audiencia y tú vas a traducirles a
Pero
ellos
todos
en
están
inglés.
con
¿Les
traductor,
parece?
¿no?
Porque
Están todos con traductor.
el público tiene traductor.
Great. Ok. Ok.
Let's go. Vamos a hacer por paralillas. Let's go. So we're going to have a conversation about technology and how it redefines the humans. So we want you to share us just 1 or 2 ideas in 3 minutes, which is such a difficult thing for philosophers. So let's make our huge efforts. And I hope that you can hear each other, and then we will talk. And then we will have another subject. Okay? Let's start, and let's start with you, Markus. Okay.
Okay, so assuming that this is not season 3 of Squid Game, so let me start. So let me propose a distinction between a technique and a technology. So let a technique be, like an ordinary instrument, an ordinary way of thinking about an instrument like this, right? The microphone allows me to be, so that everybody can hear me. This is an ordinary instrument. And let a technology be a relationship to such an instrument that changes potentially profoundly human behavior. Then I would argue that we now live in an era of technology in a very important sense. So regardless of the question to which extent actually existing techniques, such as AI systems, right, have reached some mysterious level of approximating artificial general intelligence or not. So regardless of how dumb the system is or intelligent by some measure, what has changed is that we relate to these instruments in a novel type of way. So let's say that we live in an era of technology in that particular sense, which is not reducible to the idea that our techniques are just getting better and somehow we are adjusting to this. So there's also a spiritual change involved in our relationship to techniques. And then I would propose the idea, like in another 90 seconds, that what we call artificial intelligence, I mean, many have tried to like disabuse us of this term, right? Is it really intelligence? And then those debates have been going on, and then by recent successes in AI research, somehow those voices, right, sound less plausible. But again, regardless of the actual facts about the systems, we nevertheless live in an era in which we relate to these new techniques in a different way. So I would say that, you know, humanity is changing in light of a conception of itself as using techniques, and these new techniques then basically just harvest that energy. You know, this former Senator Riardi also pointed out already, right, the famous metaphor, or not so metaphor, that data is the new oil. And the sense in which, there are many senses in which this might be literally true, including the fact that, you know, we're talking about electricity trading fundamentally when we talk about AI. But regardless of this, you know, hardcore electricity problem, the change might really be something on the level of consciousness, and then AI industry is tapping into this. Right, so Musk, of course, made his appearance here in various ways, but one thing which so far has probably not been mentioned was the enormously interesting debate he has been having with the German far-right representative Alice Weidel on X, where most of the time of this hallucination dialogue was dedicated not just to Hitler being a communist, that was interesting, but much more interesting was his rambling about God, the universe, and the meaning of life. So I think we should be talking about that, right? So why does Elon Musk go on X to do philosophy for 35 minutes? And then the reason is, that's my claim then, that something in consciousness has changed, which then allows us to produce new techniques, rather than the idea that techniques are changing us.
Okay. Thank you, Markus. Hartmut?
So I answer the same question?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I'm a bit confused, right? Not just by the conference, but the state of humanity right now. Because when listening to you right now, right, you said we use technologies, and we might change the way we use technologies, and we might change the way we relate to technology. But the question, but you mentioned that too, right? Is it still we then, right? Is it still us? It obviously changes us too, right? I think for me the debate, of course, is will it then still be humanity, and in what sense, right? I think what defines us is, on the one hand, consciousness. There will be probably forms of consciousness. There will be forms of consciousness in the future, but they might be changed. But also desire and fear. I always think robots, right, or even artificial intelligence might be able to do everything, even to be creative, but they will not fear and they will not desire, I assume, right? But nevertheless, I think there will be a transformation in these forms too, right? We've heard examples of this at the conference with the nudging examples and others. There will be new forms of desiring, new forms of fearing, new forms of consciousness, I think. We are in a big experiment, and no one knows. And I'm a bit hesitant to say that it will still be humanity. It will still be us. I'm almost tempted to say I think there will still be life, this power of life which creates consciousness, and which has always been kind of related to desire and to fear, right? But I'm not sure whether it will still be humanity. And I was always concerned. I mean, for most of my life, I've been a skeptic, right? I was against the idea of transforming humanity. I always thought, let's use true humanity as the yardstick with which we judge whether technology is good or bad. But in the last couple of years, I've become so depressed, I must say, not personally, but politically, I thought, we are now back to the stage, you know what, I mean, when you listen to the news, we are back, at least in Europe, it's war all over the place, right? It's not, we had always war, right? Germans or Europeans were a bit kind of hypocritical there. I mean, what did we do in Iraq and in Afghanistan? There was always war. But there is one significant change that the German Chancellor has made that very clear. He calls it the turning of the tides. And the turning is that even in all these wars we had in Yugoslavia and elsewhere, there was always hope that humanity one day will be able to overcome it. We will be able to create a peaceful world of living together, pacify existence. And of course, we thought that we are beyond the plague, the epidemics, right? But now we are back to the plague and to war and to all sorts of evil. So now I think, well, maybe it's good if we overcome humanity. I've kind of, without wanting it, I've already become a kind of transhumanist. But I mean, I don't know what will the outcome be, but I think I still have a basic trust in life. There will still be life. There will be new forms of life, probably new forms of consciousness and new forms of desiring and fearing. And hopefully they will be better than ours right now.
Thank you so much.
That was...
José María,
yo voy a ser el perro verde que hable en castellano. Bien, yo creo que el gran problema que tiene en estos momentos la humanidad cuando se enfrenta en su esencia ante la aparición de la inteligencia artificial y el desarrollo tecnológico tan exponencial que estamos viviendo es que hasta el momento la humanidad ha estado siendo manipulada por la tecnología y en particular por la inteligencia artificial, pero corremos el riesgo de empezar a asomarnos a los abismos de la sustitución e incluso de la cancelación. Y este yo creo que es un dato fundamental que tenemos que poner sobre la mesa, porque realmente estamos adentrándonos en unos umbrales en los que la esencia del humano, que es muy discutible como se ve, y que tiene que ver fundamentalmente con la vida y con la condición humana, como Hannah Arendt la planteaba, y que tiene una relación muy directa con la creación, con la imaginación, con el deseo de soñar nuevos mundos, está siendo cercada y asfixiada por un desarrollo tecnológico que está comprometiendo esa capacidad. Y debemos ser capaces de fijar esas reglas que identifiquen lo humano. A mí me gusta hablar de la recuperación de la autenticidad humana como un ámbito en el que el ser humano debe explorar la defensa de lo que le caracteriza a la hora de identificar dónde está su dignidad. Y esa dignidad está siendo amenazada por un automatismo tecnológico que pretende replicar lo humano. Porque no hay que olvidar, y estaba muy bien las referencias que planteaban, la diferencia que hacía Markus sobre la técnica y la tecnología, que la inteligencia artificial ha alcanzado un nivel en el que está siendo capaz de desarrollar un proyecto utópico de réplica de lo humano, donde se pretende que algo se convierte en alguien sin conciencia, pero con potencial consciencia. Y ese es realmente un reto que tenemos por delante, muy difícil de gestionar si la política no está a la altura de las circunstancias y probablemente sin que la sociedad humana, si la sociedad humana no esté también a la altura de las circunstancias. Se exige la capacidad de activar una resistencia, primero estética, pero luego ética, frente a lo que representa en estos momentos los retos de una IA que le disputa al ser humano su propia identidad.
Muchas gracias, María. Laurent?
Well, I'm a little bit jealous, about the people who understand something about technology because I don't, and I'm always about, puzzled when we speak about technology because my natural intuition would be that, for what I see, what I experience, what I live, that what there is about technology is always much more or much less than technology, meaning that the concept in itself, as it presents itself as something that we use in our discourses and so on and so forth, or as it is a philosophical category, always implies a little bit more than the concept itself. It implies, for instance, in the case of artificial intelligence, since it's the topic of the day, so to speak, For instance, it implies infrastructures, it implies materials, it implies mining technologies, it implies a certain type of capitalism, it implies an entire world, so to speak. So when we are talking about technology or when we are talking about humanity, actually we are not talking about technology or we are not talking about humanity. We are talking about a form of life in a certain type of world, and a world that is structured by, political concern as much as economical necessities, by legal norms as much as religious beliefs, by aesthetical preferences as much as, you can pursue this list more and more. That's why my personal intuition would be that rather than, continuing to deal with technology in a way that is focused on the object as if it existed all by itself, what we need to take care of, literally, is the world that produces the technology and that receives the technology. The world in which the uses of said technology, AI, whatever it is, are actually to be defined and have an existence in a certain framework. So the question, as a matter of fact, becomes a question which is not simply, about us as being, but us about what we are not, so to speak. A question that addresses us in a way that renders the question of being precisely pointless. So for me, technology is interesting as it recalls us of the fact that, for instance, we have been prosthetic creatures since the very birth of what we seemingly are, and I don't like the word are, but we become, so to speak. And what I'm interested then in that context, in the context of the definition and negotiation with a certain world, is how are we going to choose between a world that prefers a certain set of impossibilities or a world that prefers possibilities, and which possibilities actually are we going to deal? Very abstract, but at the same time, in my opinion, very concrete, because the negotiation that we take with the world in which we are is always a negotiation about the cursor that moves from maximum impossibility to maximum possibility and how we deal with it. And my option would be the maximum of possibility is exactly what we need in the world right now when we are facing the closing of possibilities.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Renata?
Yeah. What holds society together is a belief in institutions that we formed and kind of common stories that we have, and also, a kind of a belief that there is a possibility of justice. And, what is changing in our world is we stopped believing in traditional institutions. We also, in some way, are questioning what is truth, who is lying, who is telling, the truth, what are facts. We are kind of, in a way, living in a world of universalized lying, where actually people who are authorities do not believe that we should even, sort of believe them. There is a kind of a world of performances that we are living in, where it is up to us, every individual, to sort of kind of make a choice what he or she believes or not. Now, this is radically changing the society. Since we have new institutions, the institutions of Silicon Valley, those who are in charge of AI, big data, and so on, and in some way these institutions are in private hands, and they are not operating, sort of following some ideas of equality, justice, rights, which were sort of, let's say, in the Enlightenment time, kind of starting to hold society together. So what is emerging is an increase of anxiety. I was surprised when I was doing a book signing today, and I was presenting 4 of my books, and 90% of young people bought my book on anxiety. How is it possible that, we are living in such an anxious world? And I feel that social cohesion is falling apart. Freud already said that for the idea of social justice to exist in society, we need to sort of limit ourselves, but we are expecting that others will limit themselves too. So in a way also we are not trying to damage others, because we also hope that others will not damage us. I really liked where Laurent in her lecture said we need to be more polite in our discussions because AI is taking, words from our existing discourse and it's kind of, let's say, learning and creating then new discourse. I fear that we probably have lost that moment, especially with the kind of a deregulation that is happening now or the lack of moderation. So my fear is that anxieties, and all the feelings that we have, anger, jealousy, envy, they are still very much present in our lives. So we didn't change so much as humans. But the anxieties and our fears, I think, will be heightened because there will be less and less of a kind of a common communal bond, which usually actually keeps anxiety at bay.
Thank you very much. Dans.
Okay, I am very positive for making some difference, okay? Because we are now able to find new treatment for cancer, because we are in the possibility to define new things, because we can be more sensible to the others, because we can build a social world very interesting together using this tool. So that's my point of view. Now, what is the reality? The reality is, another thing. These tools are not so powerful. It's a reduction of us, a reduction of life, a reduction of love, a reduction to everything, okay? It's something very limited, without real imagination, no imagination, just copy of your imagination. There is no new things. We are projecting on this machine that there is capabilities, but it is our projection. So we decide that this is interesting because the machine is able to show us new things. It's a new serendipity with the machine able to show us new things, okay? And obviously, we will evaluate. It's co-evolution world. The machine is built for adapting to us, and we will adapt our behavior to the machines. So we need to educate people about that. We need to educate that it's possible to make some limits on that. I'm sorry, it's impossible that 3 billionaire guys from US, Trump, Musk, and so on, decide for all the world that we have to deregulate the AI system. We know that AI there is a lot of hallucination. There is a lot of manipulation. There is a lot of people that follow the machine, trust the machine. There is some young people that suicide because they listen to the machine. There is women in love with machine. What is that? It's not the real world. Okay, we know there is a mental problem. We know there is we are very vulnerable in front of this machine. But please, we are in rationality. We must explain that. We must learn that together. It is possible. So for me, it's the beginning of a real revolution, the revolution for life, the revolution for the children, for the positive way. And if we just begin to say it's impossible, it's anxiety everywhere, and this is, it's a loop. And also, because of this loop in the society, we are now maybe in the Moyen Age, or we are doing choice by, trying more economical things. So what is important now is to know that this machine is not smart. She just optimizes things, optimizing algorithm, and then there is another thing which is the metaphysics of that. So there is a vision. What is a vision? Which guy is in decide that, manage that? This is the objective, to explain clearly what is now the changement, okay? And for me, it's political more than technical, more than societal. And we are if we build together collectively the way to think tomorrow with this tool is possible. It's just a tool that can augment, finally, our intelligence. So I'm very positive if we are together to think that. If I am alone, okay. The technology will win, okay? But I'm sure it's possible to do this, to think about and to create this world with these tools. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Right, 3 minutes, I will try my best. Okay, so well, maybe let me be a little bit politically incorrect by invoking Carl Schmitt. Carl Schmitt says, whoever invokes humanity wants to cheat, wanted to lie, the Pituitarian. Because what exactly is humanity? Or is it hypocrisy? And because what exactly is human? The human phenomenon is actually a technological phenomenon. When we call the human is the animal which is able to liberate its hands and to use tools. So there is a process of hominization, the becoming of the human, and we are still in this process of becoming of hominization. Different epoch in the Renaissance and Enlightenment, we have different kind of humanism as response to the alienation brought about in the society. So today when we say that, because I heard often that we have to save humanity, we have to protect humanity, as if something is putting us in danger, something is challenging us. And behind this, there is a myth of AI, as we all understand the limit of AI. Is something is challenging us in two ways. One way is that we see these AI robots as slaves. And that reminds us of the slavery history. And there is going to be a robot or AI revolt, like what the slavery revolts happened in history. This is one aspect of the myth. The other aspect of the myth is that we thought that this technology, AI, is able to resolve all the problems. And human politics is only a defect. That's to say, we humans make mistakes, so we need politics to resolve our mistakes. But with AI, especially super intelligence, is able to make decisions without mistake. So we don't need politics. We don't need politics. So these are the discourses behind this fear of artificial intelligence and robots. And these are manipulated by the industry, by Elon Musk and many others in the Silicon Valley. But as Laurent says, that we understand that these machines are very limited. And in order to not to talk about AI in an empty way, in an abstract way, we need to understand the history of technology, the history of artificial intelligence, seeing the limit of these machines before we understand how to appropriate artificial intelligence and robotics today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Gracias.
Thank you. Technology is something that is proper to the human beings. No other living beings develop technology. Let me start with fire. Fire is not a technology, it's a natural phenomenon. Technology is to build a means to make fire. And when we made fire, we invented maybe one of the first, even the first technology, how to make fire. And you have different ways to do it, not only one. So it's not just a technique, it's a technology. This technology shaped us because with fire we were able to cook and digest better the meat and grow our brains. So we made technology, and then technology made us. The relationship between us and technology is very intimate. Technology, again, shaped our 20th century cities, for example. We invented the car, and we invented means to travel fast. And we built our cities in a way that we can use this technology, the cars. And our new cities are large streets, 4 cars, and of course pedestrians, but for cars. We build our buildings in a way that is technology-based, and it also shape our way of life. So this is an intimate relationship between technology and human beings. But technology has also motivations. Why do we do this? Usually we are motivated by efficiency. We want to make things more efficient. We are motivated by gaining time. We are motivated by our laziness. We want to do less. So we want machines, for example, to do more for us. And this is how we invent such machines and artificial intelligence, for example. We want to exert less effort. Technology has indeed a consequence on society. We shape technology shapes us, it shapes also the way we live together. And this is essential because now we are reaching a phase where technology, again, is changing us, it's changing our agency, our capacities to make decisions, and this is AI, but also with neurotechnology, we are changing things in the way we think. We are, with genomic, we are changing our very nature. We can transform our genes. So we are facing a major issue that we have to solve collectively. How to solve it? We have to redefine the fabric of society. We have ethical principles, we have values, we have regulations, and all these must contribute. It's our first objective, must contribute so that society doesn't explode because of technology, but technology keeps mastered by us.
Thank you so much, all of you, for this first round.
I would like to invite you to choose some ideas of your partners. For example, can we really collectively solve something now? That's something I live there. I mean, are we already changed by this technology? And so on. Any question that you
Markus,
said, please recover it and take the word.
Well, a lot going on. Let me add, so I think many of us pointed out that there's a very important feedback loop, starting from fire, Flintstones are an important part in the story, cave painting, all of this. And so this has a feedback loop structure. So, the human-animal changes, including in fairly large evolutionary times. Fire technology was invented about 1 million years ago. And then, we see acceleration, when sapiens hits the stage around 200,000 years ago. And then we always have these feedback loops. But what we have now, I think, is, feedback loops on these feedback loops. Hegel called this a circle of circles, which was actually Charles Babbage's idea. So Charles Babbage, who invented the analytical engine, a very important 19th century idea, which would later become artificial intelligence, was a vivid reader of Hegel's Science of Logic, in which Hegel develops this idea of a circle of circles, right, cybernetics. So that's so the feedback loop now is something that we operate. And interestingly, the distinction between software, hardware, and there's a third term, wetware, was invented by an American mathematician who is a grandson of Hegel. So that's just another footnote on that. But what I'm saying is so there's this feedback loop. Now, what if, so let me raise maybe the stakes, what if there's an important sense in which some of the things that I personally find politically desirable, right, are, beyond the horizon of possibilities? So what if something has recently happened, which is the actual singularity, where the actual singularity is not like a system taking off and Terminator, right? The actual singularity is this weird thing that's happening, right? So when Kamala Harris called the Trump is weird, right? She thought that this was kind of, an insult, but maybe she was characterizing something that's been happening. So, and now let me raise the bar by one hypothesis, right? So that recently was brought to my attention by some physicists in the Google labs in Zurich. So they said, look, here's an option. think of a screen, so the situation that we're in the feedback loops, as producing a hallucination in the user, right? So if we have an e-meeting or see this concert, then this is a type of hallucination. We're not seeing someone, we are seeing a hallucination of someone, right? And plus the performance, of course, had a hologram in it, so it was drawing on that particular feature. And what they said quantum computing could potentially do is create four-dimensional hallucinations. So if you have a quantum computer, so a computer which actually operates on quantum states before the collapse of the wave function, so it's behind the curtain of the uncertainty relation, right? That's the very idea of a quantum computer. Then this computer, if you give it a suitable AI program, would be capable in principle of building four-dimensional actual objects out of thin air to just recreate what happened in the early universe. So that's something that they're working on. So, and if we reach this level, right, which is technically not impossible, very decent people confirmed this to me, that there's no technical impossibility, then... Oh, it's actually people working on this at Technical University in Zurich. Yeah.
Anyone else? We have 8 minutes.
It is really science fiction, because we don't know about singularity. We don't know about the quantum machine. We have not proof that we arrive in this direction. So please be more modern.
Well, if I may, I mean, so I would agree, some skepticism. I would say we don't know where we arrive, right? But things will change and will happen. And I would like to, I mean, I understand that with the feedback loops, and I would agree with you with the fire, for example. I think it's a great example. But as a sociologist, I would really say, do you really believe that at any of those points in human civilization and the development, right? I mean, there were many inventions which changed what we are as human beings, right? Yeah, but did we once decide? I think we were never, as human beings, never in a position to tell how fire is going to change us, what the book print is going to do us with our character, with our forms of interaction. And now there is an explosion. I mean, I think that's what you wanted to say. I mean, even now we see that, for example, using Google Maps instead of a traditional map is completely changing the way we orient ourselves in the world. We place ourselves in space, right? And we can see, for example, that the social media, they change the way we interact and how we do politics, but it's impossible to predict that, because you always say we have to decide, we have to judge how society... I mean, I don't want to get into a row with you, but I think it's too optimistic to think that we have the capacity to decide how a new technology will change us. Each time in human history, from the Bronze Age to the Iron Age to the Antiquity, Medieval Age, there were huge changes, and they were not foreseen, they were not decided, they were not judged, they just happened.
Raja?
Well, there are changes, of course, that we cannot predict what will happen, but we can shape the way it's happening. Let me give you a very simple example, which is current, which is the car again. Cars using thermal engines emit carbon, and we want to reduce carbon. What do? We move to electric cars. So we don't say, let's throw the cars in the ocean. We say, let's change the technology. And how do we do this? We do this by inventing new technology and by regulating the fact that in a few years there will be no thermal cars. So we as humans can make decisions about how we shape technology and how we indeed make it evolve. Of course, when we invented the thermal engine, people didn't predict that it will lead us to the climate change that we are facing today, and we took a lot of time to react. This was known since the 60s, mind you. But people didn't react. Politicians didn't react, and some of them still don't react. This is our duty to really analyze what's happening. We have formidable analysis engines called artificial intelligence that we can use, and that by using them, we can master our future. So it's not about predicting, and this would be impossible, but it's about deciding where we want to go as a species.
And maybe the other thing is because Raja and I are involved in computer science, okay? So I'm working on this subject since 40 years. So I've seen a lot of new things, a lot of questions, a lot of, okay, we co-evaluate in a sense because these things arrive like hold up, like ChatGPT. ChatGPT arrived, it was hold up because nobody knows exactly how the machine is running. It was invisible, okay? So we ask, as in the ethical committee in Europe, to have more transparency about this system because there is a lot of factors inside which are linked to engineer, which have a lot of consequences. It is a small example, but maybe due to these things, I trust, like Raja, that we can manage that. But if we prefer dream or go to a lot of strange story, okay, let's go. But the effect is that people are very anxious. They're very anxious for the future, but they should be anxious for now. Because now, with this chatbot, an autonomous chatbot, able to speak like us, there is a lot of manipulation. There is a lot of nudge everywhere. And there is this decision of Musk and Trump, which is not acceptable. So for me, now there's a big danger. It's not too useful to say machine will be conscious, emotional, and so on. Now this is the problem. We build a machine able to speak. Why? To replace us, to make translation, to synthesize text, to things like that. And what is finally the goal of that? Could we just speak about this reality? How we can educate people, or how the technology must be improved to imagine what we can do with this technology of language.
Renata?
Yeah, I'm remembering Cambridge Analytica. You know, that was kind of a big shock to see how, you know, political opinions can be affected, you know, by Facebook in that case. And after that, nothing happened. You know, we had more manipulations after that. And so we as individuals, I feel, are fairly powerless, you know, because first of all, we don't have access to data. We don't have knowledge about the secret algorithms, you know, and in some way also we don't have political will. A little bit in Europe, but that I would say still stay a little bit, and not in the United States, where the dominant industry is based. So I feel that, you know, we as individuals are in some way in a kind of ignorance stage, which is often forced on us. Because when we are using new technologies, we are sort of confronted with what Jacques Lacan, French psychoanalyst, says was the question when, you know, someone comes to you, a robber, and says, give me your money or your life. You know, this is like a question, a choice offered, which is a forced choice. If you say, I want to keep money, you give life, you will not be able to enjoy your money. So now we are asked, do you agree with cookies, or do you give consent? If you don't say yes, then you have digital death, you know. So it's a forced choice where we as humans, I feel, are more and more powerless because there is no way to politically, in a way, mobilize ourselves.
Please, Laurent.
You have 30 seconds. I don't know.
Yeah. No, we love apocalypse, don't we? I mean, and I think then part of the problem of the debate is precisely the fact that we confuse change with apocalypse. So we tend to consider changes as things that are heavy, loaded, dangerous, and so on and so forth, and that we are the witness of the end of the world, which is the very definition of enjoyment, you know. And precisely, I think that part of the question here is to try and get back to the idea of change as something, you know, very small. It's a question of fuses, it's a question of continuation, it's a question of context that you build around the changes and so on and so forth. It's a question of how extended is the network of, for instance, a technology like AI and so on, which is particularly boring. It's everything but apocalyptic. I think that AI is a very boring thing, and it's good that it is a very boring thing. And it is as a very boring thing that it should be looked at, you know, with cables and materials, you know, digged in China or in Congo, and it implies and so on and so forth, rather than the big claims about changes of nature, human nature, as if human nature ever existed, and you know, menace to society and so on and so forth. So apocalypse, please, no. Change, okay, let's talk about it, including politically.
Okay, thank you, all of you. All of you are more interested than we, but we have to do this question. What kind of humanity we want to be? please. And, okay, what happens, Raja, maybe, if we delegate our decisions to AI, maybe? So, what is our role? Please, all of you.
So I think that, I truly believe this is one of the most important questions, because humans are self-determining animals. So part of the answer to what humans is the answer that humans give to that question. So, answering this question is what determines us as being thus and so. So we are embodied answers to that particular question. I think there's a layer to this question that is crucial, which is also coming out in various ways in this conversation, namely that our self-determination, which is our free will, right? So determining ourselves as being thus and so, I think is what free will is. It's self-determination. It's not breaking the chain of nature. So if that's free will, then the question is there something that free will is subject to? Is there a norm that allows us to distinguish between good ways of determining ourselves and bad ways of determining ourselves? I think that's the crucial question. So can we find normative criteria that allow us to separate between normatively desirable future self-determinations and those that are not? And it won't do to dislike others in polarization. Right, so unifying against Elon Musk is not going to win the game in any way. Also, that's the game he's playing. You can't win the game of polarization if you fight polarization. That's just the catch-22, right? So if that's not how you win the game. So if you win the game, then I think you need to answer the question what humanity is in light of the question what ought it to be. And I do not think that we're currently anywhere near an acceptable answer to the question, because our thinking about this is still, unacceptably parochial. So we think from a localized historical position as Europeans, Latin Americans, or whatever, answering this question, and I think that's not gonna be it. So like my proposal is to try to work out what a not yet existing universal bond of humans could look like, and to use technology to do that. So any opposition to either technology or to what's happening, etc., like this type of conservative resistance is just going to be swiped away anyhow. So the question is, can we shape the future in a normatively desirable way, or is the future decided by just like struggles for profit? I think, and there's a possibility that this might still be open.
Thank you so much.
Raja, let's change.
Okay.
Like try to.
Okay. Yes. I mean, this is a very important question, and thank you for raising the free will issue. We have this inherent, and we are, again, the only living beings that have this. We have this inherent agency, this will to do things and to control it, human autonomy. This is one of the really basic properties of humans, identified by many philosophers since the Greeks. And this will not disappear, because this is how we are. And it's up to us to decide. No one tells us. So I don't think there's a norm that is going to emerge, although the idea is quite interesting, because I think the norm will be contradictory with the human autonomy itself. We will change the norm if there is a norm. And therefore, we will have to really consider this as a key feature, I would say a key freedom that we have. Freedom to decide what to decide. And this, I think, is a basic thing that we should all be aware of and do it together. Decision is not a human being, a single one. It's not Donald Trump. It's not Elon Musk. It's humanity. And humanity is numbers. It's also brains. And I think we will arrive to solutions. These guys are not eternal, despite the fact they are seeking immortality, of course, which is, in my opinion, a thermodynamical impossibility. So let's forget about it. They will not live forever. But we, as humanity, will live longer, and we should think as humanity, as solidarity, as really fighting anything that goes against this. There are numerous examples in philosophy, in literature about this.
Okay, thank you. Markus?
So I think actually you see something here. I think we have to admit, I mean, we don't know, no one knows right now what the kind of world we are going to, right? But I think there is an interesting difference between philosophers and sociologists. I'm more of a sociologist, right? Because, you know, I found that interesting that both of you said basically human beings are self-determining beings, right? And there I thought, well, I somehow agree, but then I thought, no, I fundamentally disagree. Because what I said, and for me this is important, we are self-interpreting animals, right? Or self-interpreting beings, but not self-determining. I really think we have never been self-determining. I mean, look, we try to make sense of the world we live in. And of course, then we try to react to it, try to deal with it. That's what we have to do, make sense of it, interpret it, and then react to it, try to make the best of it. But I think, as I said, when you look at human evolution, we have never decided on, I mean, the context conditions which are changing, we cannot control. I mean, what I said in my talk, the attempt to control the world has led to monstrous forms of uncontrollability. But what I want to say is, I'm kind of torn, and then I will finish. I mean, I don't know what the future is, but look, there are two things which worry me. Someone mentioned learning a language, right? We know learning a language is incredibly important for human self-interpretation, really, because when you're capable of thinking in a different language, you gain a sense of contingency in life, of different forms of being in the world. But now we have these translators, right? And despite our knowledge, of course, young people and even old people will, I mean, I think the number of people who learn foreign languages will decrease dramatically, and we will not decide it. I mean, how could we decide it? We have this technology, so we will not learn foreign languages, most of us, right? And this will change us probably to the worse. And when you look at, there's something, maybe you know it better than I do, when you look at IQ, the definition of IQ, human intelligence, right? Human intelligence, as we can measure it, has been going up since it was invented in 1980, I think. Every 10 years, they had to make the questions more difficult because people became brighter. And it's exactly with the invention of the internet and these technologies that the opposite has started. We become more and more stupid. I mean, that's at least the data I have, right? We are incapable of, when you measure it, we seem to lose intellectual capacities. And that's not self-determination. We have not decided on it. It's kind of happening behind our backs. So that's my pessimist heart. But I also have an optimist soul. I think, look, I mean, we want, all of us are talking about creating a better world, a peaceful world, overcoming the problems. But as I said, I think we are incapable of, I mean, me personally, as being a German also, I think this situation in Gaza and the Middle East, it's really deeply, it's kind of driving me mad. And I think, okay, let's face it, we are incapable of solving it. Unfortunately, we as human beings right now are not capable of doing it. So I think, why not feed all the knowledges and principles we have into an artificial intelligence and tell us what to do, and then we follow it. And maybe that will help us. But at least I don't think that we are self-determining beings.
Okay, we're going to mix answer and exchange opinion, okay? Go. Do you agree?
Let's artificial intelligence. Can I just say something just about the learning? Because we, as Occident, US, Europe, have now this constat for EQ, but it's not the case for Asia. Okay, there is war, invisible about that. So if you see Korean people, they are learning a lot. They are very good now in research. The research is dramatically changed. Before it was the US people, the first, then Europe, then Asia. Now it's Asia and US and Europe. It is incredibly visible, but nobody say that. So there is another topic, which is exactly what you mentioned. How to be more aware about this difficulty, we need to change education. It's urgent, and maybe with a lot of tools. This is not a problem. I'm very pro-techno. I just want to say, now is not the cataclysm, not the apocalypse, is the way that how we can change the world, change the education for having new talents. Because this is not definitively the way where we go. And the last point is the fact that we spoke about machine everywhere, but machine is talking a lot of energy. So where is this energy? How we can do that? It will be a crisis. So some of the people can use this kind of machine and the others no. So there is also a sociological problem and a lot of inequality in the future with that kind of things. It's not possible to solve that too. So due to that limit, I think that we have to build a new world together, which is more positive possibly with this
you have your 3
education.
minutes.
Yeah. José, María, por favor.
Optimista en el contexto actual. Primero porque la libertad, tal y como la describía Raj, es un concepto occidental, producto del liberalismo, que está implosionando y colapsando por la emergencia de los populismos y por un complejo industrial tecnológico que lo que busca es abiertamente manipular la voluntad humana y llevarle a una dependencia absoluta de la tecnología. Por lo tanto, vivimos un escenario en el que las libertades están claramente amenazadas porque no hay capacidad para regular, porque los estados están desbordados ante un poder donde hegemónicamente se pretende el control sobre la totalidad de la humanidad. Y es una batalla que libran Estados Unidos y China y que aboca a Europa a un papel marginal, a las otras regiones del mundo también. Y por lo tanto es muy difícil ser optimista porque las condiciones no son, por la propia infraestructura del desarrollo tecnológico, adecuadas para pensar que tenemos mecanismos reales de control más allá de la educación. Es decir, tenemos que ser capaces realmente de hacer una apuesta por una educación que recupere la capacidad del arte, la capacidad de la cultura, para que el ser humano pueda creativamente relacionarse con la tecnología como obra de arte y no como tecné. Y yo creo que ese es el futuro que al ser humano le puede empoderar en su relación con la tecnología. No una concepción de, y lo dice un liberal, de la libertad como agencia humana, porque en estos momentos ni una parte fundamental del mundo, como decías, Asia, Extremo Oriente, incluso el mundo árabe, tiene la misma mirada sobre nosotros acerca de la agencia humana y de la capacidad de empoderarnos sobre nuestras decisiones y responsabilizarnos de ellas. Y al mismo tiempo creo que la cultura como concepto amplio que habla de la dignidad humana es algo entendible por todas las culturas del mundo. Porque hay también, como sabe Yuk, una tecnodiversidad, una interpretación de la técnica desde otra mirada. Y la cultura es lo que nos permite la capacidad realmente para operar y ser capaces educativamente de llevar al ser humano hacia un control de la tecnología sin caer bajo el peso del complejo industrial tecnológico de Musk, Trump y quienes pretenden ver la tecnología solo como utilidad. Y es algo más.
Your reflection.
Your.
Right, yes, thank you very much. Actually, I was a little bit confused because we started with Markus talk about response to the question of decision. That if machine can make all decisions for us, what does it mean by that? And I think we need to understand what does it mean by machines making decisions for us. Machines can never make decisions for us. Machine can only show us the norms. And machines are very good at that because they're capable of analyzing large amounts of data, more effective than we are. So when the machine presents something to us, it's not a decision, it's the normativity, it's the norms. And you have to decide if you are going to accept these norms, meaning to adapt to these norms, or you are going to reject or criticize these empirical tendencies. Now, of course, this is a whole debate around the Kantian morality that there is. We are driven by the empirical inclinations, and to be autonomous, to be a moral agent, we have to constantly be against these normativities that are brought to us and we are forced to accept. So in that case, I don't think that machines are making decisions for us. They're not capable of making decisions for us. And what we have to do, in order to be moral agents, you said, is that we have to be very critical of this kind of this empiricism that is imminent in machine learning, because it's an empirical machine.
Rebecca.
Now, we are looking at machines in a very anthropomorphic way. When we have, a robot vacuum cleaner, we usually give the machine a name. Quite often it's a male name. I ask my friends, majority of them gave a male name. I don't know why. Maybe they desire that men do more cleaning. But it's
much more woman.
Yeah, but Slovenia, men, obviously.
Let's go to Slovenia.
It's also interesting to look, how culturally differently we look at robots. And that is like a kind of a history from literature, movies. So Japanese people much more love robots. They perceive them because of manga as friends, as someone who will help them. In the United States, because of Hollywood movies, RoboCop and so on, there is much more anxiety in regard to robots. Robots might come to kill you. Now, in regard to humanities, I think that the perception of subjectivity is changing with the help of AI. And I will just take an example of the use of AI in the military. Military, we have seen it in Gaza, perceives, let's say, civilians as collateral damage. Now, the perception of civilian has radically changed today. Either they are perceived as human shields, or data bearers. In the Ukrainian war, sometimes, willingly, people are helping the military by sharing data, but often we are unwillingly, let's say, with our telephones being little spy machines in our pockets, sort of, let's say, contributing data to military, but also other purposes. Now, in regard to free will, yes, it is a necessary, I would say, kind of a fantasy, which help us thinking about us as making rational decisions. However, many of our decisions are unconscious. They are linked also to how other people are choosing, and many are linked to the idea of what might be a right choice. Now, when Zuckerberg decided to sort of stop moderating Facebook, he did not collect a group of 8 philosophers or more to sort of have a public debate, if that would be a good idea. He made the choice himself. And that's the problem today. We have sort of forgotten that individualism of choice brought us to the point that one person makes a choice which will affect, humanity in the way that we cannot imagine anymore.
Okay, Rebecca, sorry. And about the key question, Laurent, Rebecca, what kind of humanity we want to be?
Yeah, precisely. I wanted to answer to that again, because machines are coming back all the time. So humanity, and then I realized that I don't have any answer about that, and I'm as lost with humanity as I'm lost with technology. I suppose I'm lost in general, which is a little bit, of a problem. But you somehow pointed out something which maybe I have an answer to that. Is the fact that with artificial intelligence and machines, what we are facing is norms. And when I think about humanity, or my humanity, for instance, the only humanity that I have is in my pocket, is in my passport. And it's a humanity that's been decided by the authority of Belgium, deciding which are the characteristics that are important to define my humanity, my gender, my date of birth, and so on and so forth. So a series of political, administrative decisions that have been made throughout history that decide indeed what there is to say about humanity. So I would like to say that the whole debate, whether it's on the humanity side or the machine side, is indeed never a debate about the ontology, the reality of things, the truth value, the goodness or the badness of things, but about precisely the type of possibilities that are involved in the normative framework in which we live. And it's at the level, let's say, of normative framework, so at the level literally of law, that things are law and the type of law that we desire, that the question has, for me, to be asked. So the question of humanity, the future of humanity, and so on and so forth, is actually the future of the type of law that we are ready to live with and to live by. And that the question then of humanity as we are, or the machines as they are, remain as open as it can be, remain as open as it has always been, and as connected to it as always been, to simply the question of what can we do? And the answer is we don't know what we can do. We can do basically everything if we want to, if we work hard enough, and so on and so forth. But there are norms, there are values, there are principles, there are frameworks, there are administration, so on and so forth, that will then decide for us about what is possible and what is impossible. And that, for me, is really a problem.
We will...
You could please. You want to answer? Yeah.
Yeah, well, as I said earlier, that it might be a mistake or maybe even illogical to talk about one humanity as if it is already there. Maybe we have to think about humanity as the possibility of difference, of creating difference. Markus was talking about coexistence, for example. If we have to talk about coexistence, it means that we have difference. Otherwise, we don't need to talk about that. And but now I think that when especially your question is in relation to technology, and I think that now the problem is that actually we live under the dictatorship of the Silicon Valley, and this dictatorship is not only political power, but rather the possession of knowledge. This is, let me explain this point. Early this week, I was giving a lecture at the University of Chile, and one participant came to me and asked me how do I think about free software movement and so on and so forth. And I remember when I participated in observed the free software movement, they want to create alternative to Facebook. They want to create alternative to Twitter. But at the end, every product they produce looks exactly like Facebook, exactly like Twitter. Because they are based on the same kind of ontological, epistemological assumptions, they didn't change the knowledge. They only changed who is the owner of the property. And this is not only in the among the activists. If we look at, in terms of social network, we look at Twitter, we look at VKontakte in Russia, we look at WeChat in China. They are actually all the same, based on the same set of knowledge. And we need to question this. And that's why I'm very happy that José María mentioned the concept of techno-diversity, that we really need to create this possibility of techno-diversity. And this is not only power, but also knowledge. And I think we, as intellectuals, we may not be able to create the superintelligence, but we are able to engage with the production of knowledge and the challenge the hegemony of knowledge, which has been a blind spot, I think, when we think about technology.
Thank you so much.
And just to complement, it's the same for the language.
Laurent.
In Llama 3, for example, of Meta, there is more than 80%, 85% of English. And the remaining, no, I think it's more than 95% of English. And the 5% remaining is 30 languages. And language is a politic, ideal, love, lot of things. So there is a clear manipulation invisible, which is linked to language, which is linked to the fact that we copy everything, and we use the same chip, and we use the same methodology, and this is a reality. So I think that it is like that we can colonize people, okay? The language. You change the language of people. you change the reference of people, cultural reference and diversity. So the main point in our discussion, I return, is the fact that we have to, the challenge is to save the culture, to save the diversity.
We are finishing our time, so I know that is super frustrating because we have so many subjects on the table. Now you talk a lot about power, and definitely that's a huge elephant in the room because it makes a huge difference with the past, who's controlling this. So we will have 30 seconds for each to close, because it's so sad to finish now, you know? My heart is not able to do that. So, you start.
Well, then I think, 30 seconds, we can reject the offer of the blackmailer. So the fantasy of like an omnipotent Silicon Valley, etc. Like it's interesting. So imagine that we're in a position where General Motors in the past is like super powerful, right? Or the Japanese economy in the 80s. In the 80s, you might have thought, or the 70s, Japan will take over the world, right? Right now, Germany surpassed them as the third largest economy in the world, and we don't even care, right? So this is how much we forgot Japan for the time being. So in sum, I think what we're facing is basically also some ridiculous blackmailing. So one way of resisting is not buying the story that there's any kind of necessity built into computing power. So we can fight back, but fighting back, in my view, is not regulation or wishful thinking that humanity unites. It's programming back. So we need versions of, we just need to invent something better, because Facebook, before it existed, also didn't look like Facebook. Facebook is not a copy of Facebook, etc., etc. So indeed, we need something new. That's the only way. We need to outperform them. We need something
new, and someone to pay for it. We have that problem.
It's an economic question, either we can still, those of us who are not Americans or Chinese, either we can still compete in the markets, or we suck at capitalism. And I recommend that we don't suck at capitalism, that we need to outperform them. That's all.
Raja, your
and
third.
sociology says?
Well, does it work? Technology will not fight technology.
It's not working, is it?
No. The other mic.
No, this is not working. That was mine,
Thank
sorry.
You. Technology will not fight technology. We are not in a technology race. It's people. Let me take an example. We speak about oil as the data. Well, the world was dominated by the big oil companies at the time, and now it's dominated by the big data companies. How did we fight back? By making oils also, and by increasing the number of oil companies? This doesn't work and will not work. We have to fight back by questioning the economical model itself. The economical model in which we are the goods that are traded, and therefore retain our autonomy and our decision making. So I think that there is a change of perspective that we need to fight back, and not to add the ambient war, in a way, into this domain.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. 30 seconds is pretty tough, right? I think I agree with the power issue, which you said, but I think, Elon Musk, he has the incredible economic power, he has the media power, and now he has even political power. This is a kind of unheard of world dictatorship, yeah? But I think we have to face the fact that this is partly also due to the fact that even if you had 8 philosophers like us, right? We definitely could not agree on the rules for Facebook. I'm pretty sure for this, right? Because it's really tricky, right? I think the problem really is that it's very hard to see how could we solve these issues, right? So I think right now we are really at an impasse globally, but I really believe in Hannah Arendt's idea, natality. It's possible to start anew, right? It's possible to make a change, like when the Berlin Wall came down and the whole Eastern Bloc fell down, and we did not plan it and we did not foresee it. So I think we need to keep lust in life and trust for life, and then something new will show up soon.
Hopefully. Yuk?
Well, to capture the question of power, I just wanted to recall what Putin said in 2017. He said, whoever leads in AI will dominate the world. And I think now we are all in this game, we are all in this competition to develop AI which is applicable to large scale with high efficiency and speed. But this also means we are moving towards an abyss, towards an end. And what we have to do is to either to change the rules of the game or to invent new games, such as you said, that we need new economy programs. And I think this is possible because we are not only, for example, today we are not only talking to a general public or students, we are also speaking in front of the Chilean Senate. We must work together, politicians, philosophers, scientists, to think about how to change the rules of the game and invent new games. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
José María.
En 30 segundos, apelando al mito y a la poesía. En el mito, Protágoras de Platón, cuando la humanidad recibe el fuego robado de Prometeo, se encuentra con que se deja arrastrar por el deseo de destruir el planeta. Zeus no le arrebata el fuego, le da la justicia. Y con un poema de Hölderlin, allí donde está el peligro crece lo que nos salva. Por lo tanto, todavía hay esperanza.
Gracias, José María. Laurent.
I have a suggestion for the future, because I listen the word power, competition, where, what that? And there's not enough women in this story, okay? This war is a war of men. As a woman, I have children. Clearly, I don't want the war for my children. I don't want this total, as you mentioned, collapse or apocalypse or I don't know. Please, this is not the real world. The real world is to say we have to be together to try to have a society better, with a better medicine, with a conscience of ecology, this is this game, this goal. So the game to say, okay, we would like to compete, where is the power, and so on, it's not the right question for me. It's just a science fiction or things like that. But Musk is someone coming from maybe this kind of movie with Frankenstein and so on. But it's just in a situation, as I mentioned, which is totally incredible because it promised something that it cannot do. He promised to the government American to do this kind of reduction of people in the government for efficiency, and with a delay in July 2006. It's impossible for him. So I think it will explode, in a sense. This is not a human decision. So I'm sorry, but why we are listening this guy? Why we are just in speaking about this war, power, and so on? The power is to think for the others. The power is to build together things. Okay? It's my opinion.
Thank you.
And I want to have more women in this area. We are only two. It's not normal. I'm sure there is a lot of other philosophers.
You're right. No.
And last things for the woman in this room. The technology is worse for human. For example, speech recognition system is better for male voice than female voice. And there is other case, okay? And there is a lot of bias everywhere. It's normal because this machine is just imitating what we are and this data from the history. So we have a lot of work to do. It's not power, it's just now reality.
Laurent, thank you.
Laurent.
Well, I don't know really, but I suspect, I imagine that perhaps the solution to some of the deadlocks that we are facing is a solution that has been existing for, let's say, 175 years, but has never been tried and tested really in reality. It's called communism. So collectivized the means of production of knowledge. That's exactly what we need right now.
Thank you. I don't know if we will, but okay. Renata.
Okay. So I don't know if you've noticed, but the shares of the dating companies, the online dating companies, are falling. People more and more think they don't want algorithms to decide whom they will meet, on a dating and hopefully find love. People are still craving recognition, connection, and love. And they will continue craving that. And so populists are winning in giving them the impression that they are hearing them. Trump didn't win because he promised more AI or more data centers. He promised cheaper eggs and the control at the border, and sort of pretended at least that he's hearing the poor people who have been suffering in the last decades. So I think we should think that humans didn't change that much. We might actually fantasize about the end of the world, but really we want a reset of society.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. You have been so generous with us. It is obvious that we have so many things to talk to each other and to get to some points, but we have found some clues. How are we going to recover our power, our common power, our collectivity? That's a huge question because we are in a moment where we don't think we are connected to that reality. So thank you very much for this conversation.
Yeah.
I hope it continues and create a new era of thinking about the future more commonly than we usually do. Thank you.
And it's very clear why philosophy and sociology have a key role in this scenario. Markus, Gabriel, Hartmut, Rosa, José, María, Lassalle, Laurent de Sutter, Renata, Salecl, Laurent de Villers, Yukhui y Raja Chatila. Thank you so much.
Hemos hablado hoy día. Oh, we have a picture here.
Y es tan clave este rol que cumple Congreso de Futuro de poner a la filosofía y a las humanidades en el centro de la discusión sobre el desarrollo tecnológico. Muchas gracias a ustedes y muchas gracias a todos y todas quienes nos acompañaron en esta jornada, pero queda Congreso Futuro, Paloma.
Queda mucho todavía. Hemos hablado hoy día de poder, de las posibilidades que tenemos los humanos de recuperar nuestro control, de cómo la comunidad podría eventualmente hacer el cambio en el futuro. Y esto también seguirá mañana. Vamos a hablar sobre océanos y vamos a hablar sobre futuros. Ya tuvimos el miércoles una charla junto a Julio Rojas donde entendimos todo lo que podía salir mal. Y bastante de eso lo profundizamos durante el día de hoy. Pero mañana tenemos la oportunidad de completar esa mirada. ¿Quién sabe con qué? Tal vez trae un futuro positivo.
Claro que sí. Recuerden, la invitación es a venir aquí a la Sala Seina o a seguirnos en congresofuturo.cl. Nos encontramos mañana con más Congreso Futuro 2025. Buena tarde.
Gracias por estar.